Hello, my most awesome artists! Today we are going to be making our bobblehead pets. So first you need to sketch out your idea. So the bobblehead is almost like this triangle shape without a tip, and the head is just a circle. You need to figure out what type of animal you are going to draw on here before you move to the project. Because if you don't know what you're doing, that will make it more difficult for you when it comes time to add details. So I'm going to make mine into, let's say a goat. So there I have my idea sketched out. So I am now ready to move on to the clay. So you're gonna have one big slice of clay for the body. I'm just gonna get this a little moist. And before I move on, first of all, I'd like to mention that this is on a mat and I have my canvas on top of this. You don't want to use just one of each because one, if you use a mat, it's going to stick to the mat and you're not going to get your clay off. Two, if you just use the canvas, the clay will go through and make a mess on the table underneath. So if we use both of these together, this will make it easier for us to clean up. So now I have my slice of clay here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my rolling pin and just roll it out to a nice even thickness. Should be roughly like the size of your pinky, maybe a little bit bigger, evenly spread out all the way around. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to roll this out, and as I'm rolling it out, I'm going to flip it over so that I can have it even on both sides, and it makes it a little easier on me. If you see it starting to crack, like the edges are starting to crack here, get a little water and spray it because you don't want it to dry out. Clay does dry out when it's exposed to the air. I am going to grab a little texture print. So here are some different ideas of what you could do. And I'm going to choose one. Or you could even use a stamper. And I'm going to roll this design onto my clay, pressing hard. And as you can see, it's starting to leave the imprint of the texture onto here. So I'm just gonna roll it over all of this so that it's all covered in texture. And now what I need is a ruler. We want roughly 4 inches wide. Now I'm gonna get out one of my clay tools, one that has a sharp edge that I can use to slice the clay. So this tool here would work nicely, or maybe this one. Or maybe even this one, whichever one you think works the best. So I have 4 inches right here. I'm going to stick this stick and cut right along here. This is extra clay. Don't throw it out, but save it for later if we want to add details maybe. I'm going to spray this again. And then this body should be anywhere from 5 inches to maybe a little bit longer. So if this clay isn't long enough for you, you're going to have to take your pin, roll it out a little more, and do the texture step again. So I'm going to measure 4 inches this way first. So there are my 4 inches cutting off. And then I'm going to cut off the edges here so that it's nice and straight. Now what you should have is a nice rectangle. Okay, boys and girls, what I'm going to do is I'm going to slip and score this whole edge here. So I'm scoring it, leaving marks from one side to the other, crisscrossing my pattern, and I'm going to do the same to the other side where I want to attach it to. And I'm going to take this slip, which is really mushed up clay and water, and apply it where I just scored on both spots. Next, I'm going to press that together. So now I have a cylinder. If you notice, there's some slip that's pushing out there a little, and you can use your tool to remove it, or you can use your finger to smooth it. This will be the back side of your piece. You need to make sure that you slip and score because that's how it stays together. If you don't slip and score, it will probably fall off when I'm firing it in the kiln. Now, the next step is we're going to slip and score the inside here. And we're going to pinch it closed. So now here is my body of my goat. If it's not standing upright, you can always use a piece of roll and put it in there so that it can stand up. You need to make sure that you make it so that it can stand up, because otherwise this will not work. I'm going to lay it flat now just because I want to start adding some details. So now this is where I'm going to start adding maybe the belly in here, which I could just, I think for my belly I'm just going to draw it. So I'm going to draw it with my lines. And let's say I made a mistake and I didn't want it like that, I can slip and score over it. Though just be aware that I'm going to lose my texture in that area where we pressed it on there. So I drew the belly of my goat on there. Maybe I want to add some hair textures in there. I can carve into here. So that's one way of adding details. Another way is to take a piece, for example, for my feet. You can take another piece of clay, some of the scraps that you had left over, and you can smooth it over if you don't want that texture on there. And then you can cut out pieces to use to make the details. So I am going to first draw my goat hoofs. And if I don't like how they look again, I can use the slip to make them disappear. And then once I have them the way I want them, I'm going to cut them out. Once I have them the way I want them, slipping and scoring needs to occur as well. I'm going to attach these right on here, because if I do it any lower on there, then it's going to have trouble standing up. Okay, so here is my goat body. Now on to making the head. Any loose pieces that you have like this, don't throw away. Put them on my scrap pile or throw them into the clay bin, because they can be used and recycled. So now you're going to take your second slice of clay that you had and you're going to make it into a ball. If it's starting to dry out again, make sure you spray it with water so you don't want it to crack on you. And I'm going to roll it into a ball. Keep the body of your bobblehead there for you to use, because we're going to use that to measure the size of the head, because if we make it too small, it's not going to fit on there. So now I have my clay made into a ball of clay, and we're going to do a pinch pot. So to make a pinch pot, you're going to have your ball of clay, insert your thumb or a finger into the middle of it, and you're going to use your thumb and your fingers to widen that hole. You don't want to start losing your shape too much of the head, so make sure that you're not making it go out in wacky directions. You want to have like a half circle for the head. Also, if I try to make this work, obviously that's not going to fit on there, so I need to make the hole wider. Now, I have my head of my bobblehead created. The only problem is I got this crack in here. So, as we talked about with glue, you cannot just stick it back together and expect it to stay. You need to score it and slip it so that it stays together. Now, once I have my head the way I want it, I'm going to make sure it measures and fits on my bobblehead, because if it doesn't, it's not going to work. And it does. So now I'm going to start adding the details to my head. If you want this to be a little more even here, you can use this tool to trim off the edges. I'm going to go ahead and add the details on my head now. Okay, so now I have my head done. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my body, and we're going to actually make this a little thinner. So I'm going to take this big tool here and carve off a chunk of that. Don't go down too low. You are not going to get another one, and we don't want to mess it up. Just so that the bobblehead can bobble on there a little bit more. I might want to go and make that a little bit skinnier. Now, if it's the end of the class or you are done, what you're going to do is you're going to put this in a plastic bag. If you do not have it in a plastic bag, it will dry too quickly and it will crack, and you won't be able to have a finished piece, and then I won't fire it. So you're going to put it in a bag, Make sure the two objects are not touching, so I'm carefully putting it in the bag. If you are still going to work on it, your bag should be sealed shut tightly with no air getting in, because air will start drying out that clay and then you won't be able to add details and slip and score like you'd want to. If it is done, you're going to leave it open a little so it can start drying. Have fun, my most awesome artists, and I will see you guys later.